David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another fountain pen review. When it comes to pens, I like it when a company surprises me. It could be a new design, or a unique, well-performing nib, or even just producing something that you didn't expect. And that's what I have for you today. I have a brand new release from the company Ensso, which I wasn't expecting, and I was very pleasantly surprised, mainly because of the outstanding price point for what this pen brings to the table. Normally, I talk about price near the end of a review, but I'm going to cut right to the chase here. What you're going to see is a quality, limited edition Urushi pen made in Japan with a Bach 14 karat gold nib for only $395. I hope that piques your interest a little bit, because it piqued mine. What I'm going to do today is go over the parts and features of this intriguing pen, talk about what I care for and what I don't care for about it. I'll show some measurements, size comparisons, and provide a writing sample. Thanks go out to the good folks at Ensso for providing this pen for review. Over the years, I have reviewed a number of Ensso offerings. They are based out of Los Angeles and have produced a number of quality, reasonably priced offerings. Now, just a warning up top here, I do have a couple of sidetracks because I found the information to be interesting, but I will indeed show you a pen. The pen arrives in this rather long and narrow box. I've always really liked the feeling of the soft wood used in these boxes out of Japan. The wood used for these boxes is called paulownia. Paulownia is very light and very soft. It's not very dense. Often in a martial arts class, the boards you see them breaking are made from paulownia, which makes sense. I don't think it'd be very fun to break boards with a hard or dense wood. The hardness of wood is measured by something called the Janka hardness scale. The scale measures how many pounds of force it takes to embed a small steel ball halfway into a piece of solid wood. Paulownia has a rating of 300 pounds, which is pretty low. Just for comparison, oak is up at 1,200 pounds, mahogany at 2,400 pounds, and the hardest wood out there is a species from Australia called waddy wood, which is a very Australian name, which has a hardness of over 4,600 pounds. On the low end of the scale, there's balsa wood, which comes in at only 70 pounds. Okay, enough about wood facts. Let's take a look at the pen inside. Inside, we have a simple felt sleeve. And inside that sleeve, we have the pen. This is the Ensso Piuma Urushi. The Piuma model is one I have reviewed a few times on this channel. There's been one made from Ultim, another Jonathan Brooks resin, I think it was a PM4. There's been one from brass and another one from aluminum. This one here is made from ebonite and has an Urushi lacquer exterior treatment. The specific treatment used on this pen is called Kuro Tamanuri, which means that there are multiple vermilion layers at the bottom, followed by more translucent black layers on the top. The result is a rich, glossy black pen with hints of the vermilion layers at the edges of the threads and the edges of the cap and the barrel. Each pen takes about 6 months to complete, as the Urushi layers take several days to air dry in specific natural conditions. These pens are produced in Japan, more specifically in Joboji, which is located in the northern part of Honshu, Japan's largest and most populous island. It's my understanding that around 98% of the Urushi lacquer used in Japan is imported from China or other countries. The Joboji area is known to be the leading producer of domestic lacquer. I was able to find this neat video showing a forest of Urushi trees, and the user was kind enough to give me permission to use it here. You can see here how the trees are scored at an angle in order to extract the sap. About 60% of Japan's current lacquer production comes from this area. The main component of the lacquer sap is called urushiol, which is an oily mixture of organic chemicals found in the sap. A higher content of urushiol indicates a higher quality of the lacquer. Chinese lacquer typically contains around 60% urushiol. Japanese lacquer from other regions contains around 65%, but lacquer produced in Joboji contains about 70 to 75%. So it's considered to be some of the highest quality lacquer produced today. Okay, let's take a look at the parts and features of this pen. This is a medium-sized pen. It is cigar shape. The top of the cap is rounded. It angles up until about ½ an inch before the end of the cap. The pen is devoid of any external branding or engraving, which is fine. You wouldn't expect to see that on an Urushi pen. The only exterior markings you might expect to see is the signature of the artist. Some Urushi pens have that and many do not. This one does not. The transition between the cap and barrel is minimal and fairly smooth. On an Urushi pen with this kurotamanori technique, I like to see that red peeking through the edges of the cap and barrel. The barrel is then straight for about 1 inch and then tapers down to the end where, like the top of the cap, it is rounded. The cap twists off at about 3/4 of a rotation, and underneath we have this very nice Bach No. 6 14-karat gold nib. There's a few things going on with this nib. It is engraved with the kanji symbol of Urushi, as well as the number of the pen. I'm not sure if I've ever seen the number of a pen engraved on the nib. It does look nice here, though. I'm not sure where else on this pen you would put it. Now, typically, if an Urushi pen has a number, it might be painted on. So you could do that, but you're not going to want to engrave Urushi. And this nib is only available in fine. And then here's a look at the plastic feed. The section begins with a short, steep flare. Again, you can see that red peeking through on that flare. And then angles up until you reach the threads, where again you can see the effects of the Urushi treatment with that vermilion being more visible. And then there's a small step up to the remainder of the barrel. The cap does post, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's not overly secure, but more importantly, I'm typically wary of posting an Urushi pen without some kind of felt or cushioning material inside the cap. Urushi is a natural material, and I would be concerned that posting might damage the pen over time. It is plenty long enough to use unposted, and is fairly light. The Piuma is a cartridge converter pen. It accepts standard international cartridges, and a converter is provided. Another nice thing about this pen is that it's also designed to be used as an eyedropper. An O-ring is installed at the end of the section, but I still would recommend a small amount of silicone grease be applied to the threads should you want to eyedropper this pen. The Ensso Piuma Urushi is a limited edition offering of only 50 pens. They are only available to purchase on the Ensso website, and as I mentioned at the top of the video, they retail for $395, which I find to be at a very attractive price point. Urushi pens can be rather expensive. The labor required to make a pen like this is significantly more than a standard pen offering. If you are looking to obtain your first Urushi pen, or you just want to add another to your collection for what I feel to be a very reasonable price, then I would recommend checking this pen out on the Ensso website. I'll put a link to it in the notes below this video. Okay, now it is time for some measurements, size comparisons, and a writing sample. Here we go with some size comparisons for the Ensso Piuma Urushi. I wanted to show you some of my favorite parts. One, like I mentioned before, I really like that transition there where the red peeks through. Overall, it's hard to see here, but it is a stark black with just a hint of red. It's like 2 drops of red in there. And then when you open it up, you again get a little bit of peak on the red here on the threads, as well as here at the end of the section. It's just a really nice package, and I like the way that it looks. In regard to a couple of other models, this is a Piuma in aluminum. And then another Ensso model, we have this here, which is the Italia. And then another Piuma model, which is the Jonathan Brooks in PM4. I believe this one here has a gold nib, but I believe they're still available on the Ensso site with a stainless steel nib. Then in regard to a couple of Urushi pens, we have this one here from Wancher. And then this in here is the Nakaya dorsal fin. This one's called the Dream Pen. This is the dorsal fin 2. And then finally here is a Namiki Yukari Royale. Those are 4 nice looking pens. In regard to some uncapped comparisons, here it is with the Italia. It's somewhat similar in size. Here it is with the Yukari Royale, and then here it is with the Wancher Dream Pen. So here we go with the Ensso Piuma Urushi. And this is a fine 14 karat gold nib. And the ink that I'm using is one of my favorite inks, which I thought looked well in this pen, which is Diamine Communication Breakdown. This is what the ink looks like. It's a nice kind of maroonish red with some green sheen to it. It looks very similar to Sailor Grenade, but I'd say that the green sheen is a little bit greater on there. And then this is what it looks like with Diamine Oxblood. This is what the bottle looks like. Diamine came out with a rock and roll series, a whole series of inks named after rock and roll songs. Originally, they were only available through German retailers, but I believe you can find them on Amazon and other places now as well. And here we go with the rest of the writing sample. I will say for a 14 karat gold nib, this is a bit firmer than I would expect. It is pleasant. It isn't overly smooth. It does have a fair amount of feedback to it. It's not scratchy by any means. And for a fine nib, I'd say the ink flow is decent. In regard to reverse writing, but you know what? I got a little paper on there. Let's see if I can get that off. There we go. It is a little scratchy, but it does get the job done. And in regard to some fast writing, the feed keeps up just fine. So there we have the Ensso Piuma Urushi. Like I mentioned, if you are looking to get your first Urushi pen, this is at a very attractive price point where it's a quality pen, you get a gold nib, and something that looks very, very nice. Or if you just want to add a nice Urushi pen to your collection, this might be one to consider. Okay, until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.